Welcome to the Ruddle Show. I'm Lizette, and this is my dad, Cliff Ruddle. Today on our show, we have a special guest, Jessie Brisendine, who's going to talk to us about stress management. So we're excited for that, and we'll get to that shortly. But first, we're still early in the year, and probably a lot of you made New Year's resolutions. Maybe some of you wanted to lose weight, probably a lot of you do, and get in shape. That's a very common goal. And at the beginning of the year, it's interesting because you'll go into a supermarket and there will be a display of health food. The health clubs, you might have to wait in line for the equipment. It might be so busy. But then a couple months go by and the health clubs are empty and you're buying Easter candy at the grocery store. So obviously, the goals did not work out how you thought they would. So what can we do to be more successful with our goals?
Good question. Still working on it. But for the most part, success isn't an accident. It's not an anecdotal, does not have to be an anecdotal, sometimes event. It really is a chance for us to build and sustain success by design through vision and effort and perseverance. So I think we should have the audience, and I think ourselves and my family needs to be thinking about this every day, because I'm always making goals like you are. But we need to make goals that blow the lid off and give us an opportunity to have unusual success within reason. It needs to be measured, but we can have a lot of success by design if we plan. Just a short story. Many years ago at Harvard University, many decades ago, the dean was addressing the graduating class, and what he asked is the class to make goals. He told them they're going to go forth and they're going to make a difference in the world. They'll actually change the world, and they'll make a big statement for mankind. So he asked them to make goals. Harvard's clever. Many years later, 10 years later, they sent a survey out to the graduating class that the dean had addressed, and they said, you're successful, whatever you're doing, but what do you attribute it to? 90% wrote back and said that they made goals. 7% wrote back, they made goals and they wrote the goals down. And then 3% wrote the goals down and additionally put them in a conspicuous place that they were confronted with it on a daily basis. Well, interesting enough, at 10 years, the 3% produced more wealth than the other 97% combined. So you could say, weren't they lucky? Gee, they were lucky. There's no such thing as luck. Luck is where opportunity and preparation meet. So I think we have a good chance today to look at a lot of things to get us a little bit better positioned to have success.
I do think it's interesting that 10% of those Harvard graduates did not make any goals, but that's a separate issue. But then also I would think that to be successful, you need to have a positive conversation in your head. Like if you think you're going to fail, probably you will.
If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right. So positive conversations. I played a lot of sports growing up. You played a lot of sports growing up. Lori played sports. Now my 5 grandchildren are playing a lot of sports, some of them at a high level, very competitive. And they'll often talk about things they're studying and about sports psychology. And what we learn from sports psychologists, there's always 2 conversations in any endeavor, whether you're a plumber, a carpenter, or an endodontist. There's the inner game and there's the outer game. The outer game in sports is the score. What inning is it? What quarter are we in? Who scored what? The inner conversation is going on inside while you're playing. So while you're sitting there chairside doing this exquisite endodontic procedure on a patient, it's going to be like a board case. It's fabulous. There's a conversation. And if you're talking about, I don't think I can, or I'm struggling, or this, we begin to play down. We begin to play down to expectations, and we look for ways out. So improve your conversation, improve your results, improve your goals.
Well, say you make goals and then all of a sudden there's obstacles in the way that you feel are in the way of your goals. Then what do you do? Obviously make adjustments.
Make adjustments. Life is about continuous adjustments. If you ever played sports, what you did earlier in a game, you might have to modify as the game progresses to address things you didn't know to plan for. So that probably reminds me of adjustments, reminds me of another story. I guess I tell a lot of stories, don't I? many years ago, Phyllis wasn't with me. I was on a long haul flight. I was going to be going from LAX to Singapore, then on to Mumbai. And so she wasn't traveling with me. So I get on the plane, we board up, and there's a very distinguished guy sitting beside me. He's got badges, a uniform, a hat, everything. And we begin to get into a conversation. And he asked me what I do for a living. And I said, I'm a plumber. And that wasn't very interesting. And that kind of shut that down because it's an 18-hour flight. We didn't need to go into endodontics. So what he basically did is we turned the conversation to him because, I wanted to know everything that occurs in the cockpit.
Because he's a pilot?
Yeah. He's a long-haul pilot. In fact, he was flying to Singapore to take a jet, a 777 to Seoul, and he was going to be responsible for 200 or 300 people. So anyway, he's telling me about all this, and then he turned to me and he said something that was very interesting. The audience will love this. He said, Cliff, the planes are off course over 90% of the time. I said, this is not what I wanted to hear. And he gave me a little pat and he said, hey, listen, don't worry. It's about adjustments. He said, we have all this technology and computers and algorithms. And he said, we're always adjusting. And that's how the plane comes in and makes that successful landing. So in dentistry, as an example, if we want to be more successful, we have to make adjustments. Easy, by making goals, writing them down, putting them in a conspicuous place. I like that Scottish Himalayan expedition thing I like to say, but whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, magic, and power in it. Get off your and get going.
Because sometimes the hardest part is just starting something. And then once you get going, it gets easier.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, those are some good ideas. I know making goals and not achieving them can be a source of stress, at least for me. And so today we're going to talk about stress management. Let's get on with the next segment. So probably one thing we all struggle with on a daily basis is stress. Work stress can impact your family life and your health. Family stress can impact your professional life, and stressing about your health can put strain on other areas of your life. So today we have a special guest, Jesse Brisendine, and he's going to talk to us about stress management. So thanks for coming. We're really glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's awesome to be in the studio. I feel like I've been reading the Ruddle Report for 12 years now, so it's really cool to be on the front lines and maybe make an appearance in the report this year.
Yeah, we've known you for a long time. Tell them how we met Jesse.
It was really great meeting Jesse because it happened in a kind of a funny way. You're thinking I went to Jesse to work out and train, but actually you started with Phyllis, I guess, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So after she had some lumbar surgery by a neurosurgeon, Chung, he said, you need to avoid future surgeries and you're going to get into training. And he gave the name. Well, Phyllis, being how thorough she is, she had to check this name out with a variety of people. And Jesse's name was on the short list. So that started. And I've learned quite a bit about you. He's much more than a trainer. So I introduced him initially as I met him as a trainer. You're going to find out in this little segment the things he's evolved to. One of the things that's really interesting is you probably don't know this, but you're responsible for where we are today. Have you thought about it like that?
Mm-mm.
Because you have an international audience too in your work, and you stay connected, and you do big shows. You've been to Vegas, TED Talks and stuff. But you were always doing those shows, and Phyllis would come home and saying, he's already shooting. He's got an audience. Cliff, just get a mic. Get an iPhone. Come on, Cliff. And Jesse says you can do this. Jesse's got thousands of people. Well, anyway, we wanted to make a little studio. It's next door to where I live, and so you don't know that, but I'm going to give you credit publicly for putting a little match under my butt and getting me going. Thanks,
Thank
Jesse.
you. I love my matches.
Well, also, Mom is just way better now than she used to be. I mean, she's been seeing you for how long now?
Yeah, it's going to be 12 years, I think, in July.
And I think that's her most regular workout program that she's ever had in her life. And she's doing great with her back now. And we've heard about all these other things. Like when she says, oh, yeah, I didn't have my training with Jesse this morning because he's traveling off somewhere, like you're always all over the world. So it's just exciting. Like my dad was saying, we actually started to realize you're a lot more than a physical trainer, that you also are a life coach and a motivational speaker. And I just want to tell everyone that he's worked with over 4,000 people worldwide, teaching them to have a better mindset and to develop emotional strategies. He's worked with Hollywood celebrities, Fortune 500 CEOs, musicians, entertainers, people from all walks of life. So why don't you just tell us, Jesse, a little bit more about how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, my first career after college was getting into physical training. I was a classic example of growing up in low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and I stumbled into exercise and realized that it was such this transformative thing, and I started to think and feel better about myself. And I wanted to go in and give that back to people. And as I was doing training, I really started to get curious about human beings. What is it? Why do we do what we do? What compels someone to stick with the nutrition program and somebody to fall off of it, even though they know they shouldn't be eating the cupcakes and the Twinkies and all that stuff? And, what is it that causes stress, like we're going to talk about in a little bit? And why is it for some people, they can manage it well, and others, it's absolutely crippling to them. And coaching seemed like this really amazing venue I could go in where if I really made it a mission to master human emotion and human psychology and why we do what we do, then it would give me this platform to offer to a global audience and be able to work with people on specific strategies and how they can shift out of stress, work on developed mindset, and all that. So it's been an amazing, amazing journey, and it's brought me here now with you guys.
Well, Jesse he doesn't know it yet. And given this morning where we're getting our mics right and we're getting the lighting and we're doing all this stuff, he probably thinks this is his last time, but he doesn't realize that he's going to be a regular.
Well, okay, so maybe, I don't know if you felt stressed when we were trying to get everything set up to start the show. We felt a little stressed because we wanted it to go smoothly for you. So just tell us more, like, why do we even have stress? Like, what is stress and what's the purpose of it?
Yeah, stress is a really funny thing. So stress, kind of as we know it, is this biological process that was evolved for us for literally survival, right? In caveman times, we had to decide if we were going to try to fight that saber-toothed tiger or run away. And it's the fight or flight response. Now, stress as we know it today is almost a luxury. Especially living in a first world country like this, we have the luxury of stress. We don't have to worry about running water or not having enough food to eat or clothes to cover us up if it's ever cold. And what that leads us to then is we still have this biological primal function inside of us called stress. And so that still gets triggered, but the things that it used to be about saber-toothed tiger versus us, that's not existent. So now we start to allocate that to bills, to how many likes we're getting on social media, to, is my business doing as well as a colleague's business? What did my spouse say, or why did they say this, or what does that mean? To, what do people in school think of me? To, am I wearing the right clothes, or whatever that might be. And so stress has become this really interesting thing where we've personalized it, but we've also diversified it over the way that we use it and experience it. And we have so many more ways of experiencing it because our lives have evolved to become so much more expansive. We have so much more stuff. We have so much more technology. We have access to so many more things that when we were first designed biologically, evolutionary, whatever one's belief is, we didn't have that. We just had to worry about, are we going to eat or are we going to be eaten?
It's kind of like a virus that's mutated.
Yeah, it really, really is. That's a great analogy for it.
Well, it almost seems like we've created a lot of our modern stress, huh?
100%. It's, I would say 99.99999% of the stress, the day-to-day stress that we think is earth-shattering, heavy, end-of-the-world kind of stress that we experience, which it feels like that, is manufactured. Absolutely.
What are the stresses that dentists have, maybe daily?
Well, in no particular order, dentists are pretty much just another person on earth, so we're all people. But in the dentistry world, to get more specific about our task, it's time management, people management, referral management, staff management. Staff comes in with their stuff, their baggage, and what happened to them last night. And you mentioned earlier about how it affects families. Every dentist can tell you stories about staffs. And then, of course, there's regulatory compliance. There's new technologies that are overwhelming a lot of dentists because should I get it? And if I get it, what's the learning curve? And how long will I take to become proficient and competent? And will I lose business if I don't? But if I do, it's going to cost a lot. Staff training, their personal training, money, how they relate to money, how they see money. I'm just throwing out a few. One thing I learned, and I'd like you to talk about this, but we always, a lot of times in dentistry, we have the morning huddle. It's not unique to dentistry, but we would start like at 7 a.m. So like at 6:50, we might have a 10-minute meeting. And in 10 minutes, as endodontists, we see a lot of acute people, pain. So you got to do triage, and not all emergencies are 10s and some are 2s. So by having the morning huddle, we would look at the schedule for the day. Oh, I see you're on the schedule. You're my next patient. No, another one. By seeing the schedule and going through the schedule and what we're going to do on each patient, there was a certain calm. We already had played that day, and now we just had to go back and replay it. But then when the phone rings and there's an emergency, we already know where to put it. We're not just going to have the receptionist guess, we'll squeeze it right in here. So by communicating, it seemed like our days, although they were pretty crazy days, still are, it really does set the tone for a more peaceful day. What do you think about communication and stress? You probably have tricks you should be telling me about. You're holding out on me, aren't you?
Yeah, here we'll do kind of a play with this. So hold your right arm out to the side. I just want you to hold it out and just leave it like that for a minute while I talk.
Just leave it
like that for a minute. And this will be an active demonstration in stress. Much of our stress is manufactured, right? And what will happen with it is we can often attribute it in interpersonal relationships to failures in communication. So as I'm talking right now, your arm's starting to feel fatigued, right? You're starting to feel tension in your shoulder.
A little prop.
A little prop under there, except for the crane that we have above.
He might not notice it yet with the adrenaline.
Yeah,
rush.
the adrenaline going, but we'll just leave it there for a minute. And you'll notice that it'll start to tense up. You'll start to feel tight. And you'll just keeps building. That's what stress is, right? It's like we go and we pick these things up and we carry them around with us. And we hold it and we carry it, carry it. And it starts to weigh on us over time. And we'll keep carrying it around and we'll keep holding on to it until finally we say, okay, you can put your arm down. And then it feels better.
Wow.
But you can feel it feels different though. It feels
different.
like you were holding a heavy load.
With my arm up, but when I put it down, it was like, nice break.
So a lot of times in a dynamic like that, we'll assume that somebody's just going to think to put their arm down. But you're responding to my communication. Now, if I'm in a leadership play, like a dental practice or something, and I tell you to put your arm up, why would you assume that that was my final instruction? So why would you assume to put it down? Because we're taught and raised, listen to your elders, follow authority figures, listen to instructions, whatever the boss says goes, and all those kinds of things. And so people will go around and carry it around. We'll carry around questions that we have and we're too afraid to ask because we have this voice that says, oh, it's stupid to ask that question, or you should know it already, or how ridiculous it is, or people are going to judge you because you haven't figured this out. And we'll withhold literally the keys to helping us release some of the stress because we lock it in and we're unwilling to communicate. So things like doing a morning huddle is so great, and creating in a leadership. So if you're the practitioner, you're running the practice, making it a very clear and encouraging place to ask questions. And when somebody asks the same question for the third or fourth time, you don't give them feedback like, you should know that by now. But you encourage them and you support them the same way that you would a newborn as they're learning to walk. Because for a lot of us, emerging into that world where we can feel confident asking questions and even more confident in our communication, it's literally the process of learning to crawl, to walk, to run. And just because we know what we know doesn't mean that somebody else knows what we know. And what can really create frustration and chaos and calamity in a professional relationship or personal relationship is we assume that the person that we're working with or relating with should know what we know. And more than that they should already have figured out what we're thinking. So a lot of times we run into that dynamic. Well, I'm just going to go in and carry on, and everybody knows what to do. Not at all. Not at all. We were talking off camera about the book Outliers and the incidents of airplane pilots and what they were dialing down to what was one of the biggest causes of airplane crashes. And they're finding there's a fault in communication between first officer and pilot because culturally the first officers were taught to not question authority. So even though they would see that there was something wrong that was going to lead to probably a calamitous outcome for a plane, they wouldn't speak up.
Wow.
So communicating is so important. If there's the slightest inclination that you should ask. It will save so much stress.
I'm hearing a couple things from both of you. First, I'm hearing that assumptions can be dangerous. And then secondly, I thought it was interesting in the experiment that you didn't really feel the strain on your arm until you put it down. So maybe we're walking around with a lot of stress all the time and we don't even know it or realize it until that stress is alleviated. Then we're like, wow, I feel so much better now.
Yeah. When you guys had your practice, how many times did you have a patient come in and they would talk about, you're doing work on them and they would report it as being, maybe not really painful or something, but then all of a sudden when the work would be done and the problem would be solved, they'd say, wow, this is so much different. Right? It's the same with us as we walk around and we get so used to a new normal, which is not how it's supposed to be, but we get so comfortable being uncomfortable. We get so comfortable existing in a relationship where there's stress and tension. We get so comfortable going into work, always worrying about our problems and focusing on the obstacles versus the answers. And it's not until we actually set it down and we give ourselves permission to set it down that we can start to look outside of it and say, wow, it feels a little better. Wow, that feels really different now that you did that. I didn't realize it could feel this good. I didn't realize I could feel this different, that I could feel this at ease. And we can, but we have to be willing to let go of some of the stuff we're holding on to.
Do we sometimes make this up because there's something we benefit or we perceive we benefit from by holding on to it? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. We are, a great example is we're driving to work and you're on your way to work, you're listing all the things to do, the never ending to-do list, right? And that jerk on the freeway cuts you off. And when that jerk on the freeway cuts you off, you of course give him the one finger salute and you have to swerve and move. And of course, then it makes you miss your exit. And now it's just really ruined your whole morning, right? So you show up to work and everybody's like, what's going on? And, I've had the worst morning ever. This person has completely ruined my day. Well, now let's pause it there for a minute and step back and look at this from a logical perspective. Was that person really parked off the freeway and sitting there timing it on their GPS that they were going to drive through and intersect your car at that exact moment, that exact time, specifically to ruin your day? Not at all.
And there's still a lot of day left.
There's still a lot of day left too, right? Yeah. But we make it up in our mind that person's out to ruin our day. And so then we've decided now that the day's ruined when there's all this day left in front of us. And nothing could be further from the truth, but we're assuming that person is just over there living their life focused on being malicious to us. They have no idea who we are. They're probably just got a call that there's a fire or something. But we're so focused on our own life and we need to make a story that helps us justify our emotions. So stress serves this purpose, right? It can feel really good to be angry because anger causes a lot of tension in your body and it feels good just like when you put your arm down to have that release. Well, when we're tense, we're angry, we allow ourselves to express out. Sometimes the anger that we'll feel in a stress response is even anger necessarily directed at the driver. What we really are is we're really frustrated and stressed out about our husband who forgot to pay a bill or something like that. And now the mortgage payment's late. But we won't go and say that to them, but we can direct it outward like that. And that gives us an expression. It gives us a release to go on and kind of go back to our status quo, new normal.
I don't know if this is going to go anywhere, but I'll just pitch it out there. You travel a lot, I fly a lot. And have you ever noticed there's two kinds of flyers? So I don't care if you missed 3 planes, you slept in the airport last night. When you arrive at the event, how'd it go? How was your flight? What do most people say? I mean, I've learned to say we had a good flight and we're here and we're ready to go. But others will start to enumerate all the details, the blow-by-blow indignities that they experienced. Yes. And it's almost like by doing that, maybe I'll cut them some slack because I feel sorry for them. Is there any dynamics in this arena?
100%. We're always trying to meet our basic fundamental needs. And depending on what field of psychology you're versed in, there's different ways that we label them. But at the core, all of us want to feel important. We want to feel like we matter. We want to feel like we're heard. We want to feel loved. We want to feel safe. And one of the ways we'll usually learn to get that from other people is through complaining, ruminating on things that went wrong, dissecting all the problems, because like you said, there's two flyers and there's a dramatic population that's in this category. And so what do we know? We know birds of a feather flock together. And if I'm going somewhere where I feel where I may not belong, I feel out of sorts, I don't feel fully comfortable, how do I bond? Right? If I'm traveling on a bus over in Paris and I hear everybody talking in French, and I'm thinking, gosh, I don't speak any French, but then I hear somebody over there talking in English, all of a sudden I know that there's somebody immediately like me and I feel safer. I feel like I belong. And what will happen is you'll see stress like that all the time. We will get significance from stress because we're important. I come in and we're sitting here, but if I slouch back like this, right, there instantly draws more attention to my situation. Now, you may want to look over and express compassion or question, how are you doing? And what I really wanted is I wanted attention. I wanted, all these types of things. And so I use stress as a way to get that. It's really interesting what we do on our deeper levels of psychology. And this is why we'll go through and we'll have the same things happen over and over again that stress us out. We have too much of a payoff off of it to give it up. So we'll hold on to it, protect it. Even though when we talk about it, we'll say, I know I should stop. I know I should stop smoking. I know it could probably kill me, but there's a payoff with it. And it's instant hit, instant gratification.
One thing that causes me stress is just not feeling inspired by life. And I did notice something that you did, and I kind of followed it just briefly. I heard about it a lot from my mom. And it was this thing you did called the 1 year 1,000 challenge. Tell us what that was, what it is.
Yeah, I had this idea a few years ago where I'd gone through a couple personal tragedies, and it was just, I found myself in this place where I was literally getting up going, what in the hell is the point of all this? It's just the same thing over and over and over again. And I knew that I was very much responsible for creating that mindset I was in. I didn't really have a lot of goals, or they seemed inconsequential in light of everything that happened. And I was talking to a couple friends about, wouldn't it be cool to do some new things that you'd never done before? And then it escalated to, wouldn't it be really cool to do like one new thing a week? And then it became, well, wouldn't it be really cool to do like 100 new things you had never done before? And then I said, what would be really neat is to try, make yourself do 1,000 things you've never done before in 1 year. And it's not a bucket list either. I think that's really important to say. It wasn't I want to go and do all these exotic things. It was really about being intentional in how you live. It was being intentional and waking up every day with a purpose, a reason why you're going to get up, and that there was something that you were going to do. And whether it was going by and trying the cuisine at that restaurant that you've driven by a million times and you've always said you would stop, but you never stop, and you actually stop. Or it was going and volunteering at something, or giving yourself the gift of an experience. Humans, we learn through contrast, right? And we're so blessed that we have eyes that we can see, ears that we can hear, our fingers are moving, our toes move. I did one where I spent the day as a blind person, walking around with a blindfold like that. It was so unbelievably surreal. And it gave me such a deep sense of gratitude for the things that we take for granted every day. And it was a really profound life opening experience, because what I learned from that is, I don't care how busy we all are, we all have time to live our life. We all have time to really sit down and decide what's most important to us and get out there and engage in life beyond. But it takes taking that pause to do that. And I'm too busy. All of us go to the bathroom, take a pen and paper in there when you go to the bathroom and write down some notes. Really, this is like maximizing time. Don't stress out about doing it. Just do it in the time where you're going to be focused on something else. And number two, people say, well, I can't do all these things. It costs too much money or whatnot. One of my sub goals with it was to try to do things as low cost as possible. So the average came out to like $2.73 per experience for the whole year.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Because even if I flew somewhere, almost everything I would do would be free. Go and see the cultural stuff, the stuff that we don't think of because we're so quick to run over and we want to take our picture in front of, well, now it's something like this. We want to take our picture like this in front of the Statue of Liberty and throw it on Instagram or something.
You didn't take a selfie of you doing
yeah,
everything
no.
on your list?
I still didn't have this really good camera at that time. I was doing the still, and it'd be such a different thing now. And I have a selfie stick, everything else like that. Which selfies are they're more deadly than shark attacks.
Yeah.
Talk about stress.
Yes, nowadays
Yeah.
I see headlines all the time.
Yeah.
Someone died taking a
Take
selfie.
a selfie. Yeah, more dangerous than like shark attacks, lightning strikes.
Well, this was meant to be a little bit lighthearted,
Yeah.
but I've heard you say several times in different ways, but not this bluntly, but by changing things up. We were on the phone the other day and you talked about changing things up. It can give us a different perspective. So doing different things. Mm-hmm. So now here's the little joke. So we as dentists, endodontists, we get to go places where man has never gone before. So Jesse, can you tell me any place you've gone where man has never been before? Because when you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, there was a flag. And when you finally went to Nepal and you did the assault, you saw people.
You did these things?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I love where you're going.
You were on
Future
top of
pacing
Mount
me.
Everest.
Yeah, future pacing
The
me.
point is you can
In
go
my shorts.
to the most remote beach and you might find, somebody put some driftwood together and made something, unless it was like, seals or something. So we as dentists, when you open up a tooth and you go inside to do endodontics, I don't care if it's a central incisor, they're all different. And you're going into places where man has never gone before. So you can keep your attitude. You can go, oh, geez, I have to do another case. I get to do something that nobody's ever done before. I'm going to go in and make the world better inside. So,
Yeah, it is. It's really, it's as simple and as complex as that. Complex in that we have to remember the joy that got us to start with something in the first place. And this is where, in the earlier segment, when you're talking about writing your goals down and making it in a place where you see it, I write down all the time Post-it notes. Remember to be excited. Remember why you're doing this. Remember, I do a lot of meetings with clients over Skype, Zoom, and so I'll have Post-it notes right there about, a note about remember whatever it
To
is. That
smile?
yeah, remember to smile. Remember the human being behind the problem. Remember that there's a little boy or a little girl there who's still trying to be loved and accepted and belong behind the adult who is carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders now.
awesome.
And it does. We get in fixed positions if you're doing really fine work like this. Just opening up and sitting up, it changes the energy. It changes the dynamics.
Okay, well, speaking of changing something, maybe we should change something up and go outside and you can talk to us out there about some strategies to manage stress.
That'll be fun.
Geez, do I have to walk a high wire? Am I going to do handstands?
Cartwheels. We're gonna
Cartwheels.
start
You better
with
go
cartwheels.
put on all of your braces.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess we must all look at the camera and say, we're going to another scene.
Okay, so here we are outside, and Jesse's going to talk to us a little bit about some strategies we could use so that we can avoid stress or at least manage it.
Yeah. Important thing. So if we look at stress as an emotion, anger, sadness, anything, emotions created three main ways: through our physiology, our focus, and our language. So how we're holding our physical body, how we're moving our physical body, what we're focusing on, where we're looking, where we're putting our attention, and language we use. The story we're telling ourselves about ourselves or about the thing that is the object of our stress. So what we'll do is we'll just play with each of those three right now and just do some really basic things and just observe subtle changes that you feel. And this isn't necessarily a demonstration into magically wiping out all of our problems. What it is to do is it's to show that we can have instant change in how we feel, and if we can have instant change in how we feel, then we can build in habits and routines to integrate those changes to make long-term sustainable change.
Okay.
All right. So
I'm pretty excited.
good. I can see that. We're gonna get you on the mat and do some cartwheels. I know you're excited about that. So
Yeah, I probably got a paramedic around.
yeah. So what you just saw there is a physiology change, right? you saw with just a joke, our body language changed. We laughed a little bit, and in so doing, there was an emotional shift, right? We felt differently in that moment. Humor is a great way to elicit a one, reduction in stress response, but two, to trigger an emotional shift. So another way we can do just a physiology, that's not a surprise, but we can all see. So everybody's just slouched. We're just going to try to slouch. And notice how you feel, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being horrible and 10 being great, how do you feel just in a slouch position?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe slouching doesn't look so good on camera.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't look good and it doesn't feel good. Yet this is how we spend most of our days, especially when we're in digital, right? So much of it's like this, or we're on our phones like this. I have this whole thing about, I think one of the reasons that you're seeing so many emotional challenges with younger generations is because their world is here, which puts you in a physiological posture that is conducive for emotions like stress, depression, anxiety, and wouldn't you know it, but they're experiencing more feelings of it. So, okay, so here we are in a slouch posture, and it doesn't feel that great. So just go ahead and stand up tall, and think of just something that you really love to do as you're standing up tall. And just notice how your body language starts to change.
What are you thinking of?
I'm thinking, let's do it. Well, I know what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Let's go do it.
I was thinking of paddleboarding.
Yeah, and then now notice how you feel in this posture. It feels different, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
Ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing is just a subtle change in your physiology. Just notice how your posture is. If you find yourself feeling stressed out, if you're at a desk, just sit up a little bit taller, or better yet, stand up for just a second. If you're standing, stand up a little bit taller, or do a big movement with your body, just to move some energy around, and you'll feel some sort of instant change with it.
I know when I started working for my dad, one thing he told me was before you answer the phone, do a big smile.
Yeah.
And not like, a grimace, but an actually genuine smile. And then you'll be in a better mood and be better able to deal with who's ever on the phone.
That's so awesome, and it's such a high-level strategy, because what most of us do is we hang up the phone and we take with us whatever emotion was on the last call into our next one. Or we walk in with whatever was bothering us before.
You mean the next patient?
Yeah. Don't want to be that one.
Boy, you said something really powerful, because we as dentists oftentimes take something from that operatory over to the next one, to the unsuspecting patient.
Mm-hmm. So if you're actively practicing 3 things you want to do between patient to patient, it takes 15 to 20 seconds to do it. Change your physiology, smile, stand up tall, allow yourself to release the tension that builds up in your body naturally when you're working on a patient. Number 2, change your focus, right? So you may be wipe out the image of that patient before and change your focus to something else that's not related to what you immediately just did or going to do. So think of popcorn, think of a dog barking, something random like that triggers a different focal point for you. This is where we always tell people, don't think of the pink elephant, because the pink elephant pops up in your mind. And then change the language about it, and it could be something just, I did my best. And reminding ourselves, going back to that joy that we talked about inside, I'm excited to serve this person. My reason for being here is this. If the company has a mission statement, a purpose statement, it's a great time to recite it. And if you, as the owner of the business, are not feeling the emotion behind that mission statement, that purpose statement, then it's time to really look long and hard on that mission purpose statement, or it's time to really look within and see where did the disconnect happen when you're not embodying it, so it gives us instant feedback. That whole thing takes 15 seconds, but it'll make such a tremendous difference in the terms of how you go transition from patient to patient to patient. Because we've all been on that other side of the door where the technician, the doctor, whoever comes in, and you can tell it's been a long day, and they walk in and they're down and they're kind of, and you think, when you're sitting there, you think, oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't want to be here anymore, and I hope there's no cutting going on, because it doesn't look like they're having the best day. So, give yourself permission to take the 10, 15 seconds.
Try the 7 a.m. appointment?
I always schedule my
I do
appointments
too.
at the top of the morning because I want to get there when they're fresh.
So I have to tell you a funny story. I'll tell off camera about actually scheduling an early surgery, and it wasn't.
That also
I'll
wasn't.
save it, yeah.
But I liked your comment about the third one about changing your perspective, because you know this, but in the context of what we're talking about today, primarily dentists, I mean, we're working in extremely small spaces. And so we get locked in, sometimes an hour and a half, and millimeters make a difference. So I have an operatory that looks out at the mountains. So I like to look out, And in this case, we can see islands and a little water and the channel. And it gave me so much energy to go into the next room.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
And so that's a great example. Let's use this now for focus. So if I'm telling you who's watching, focus on my hand. Okay, really try to just focus on my hand, only focus on my hand. You start to forget about the world around you. And that's a lot of times what stress is like, is we only see the problem that's right in front of us, the thing that's bothering us. Now, talking about changing our focus, right? The second way we can really shift our emotion. So go ahead and, my hand will stay here, but instead of focusing on my hand, I want you to look at how beautiful it is behind. Now my hand doesn't change, it's still here, but your emotional experience does, because now your focus has changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can be here talking to each other, having fun, but just in turning and looking away, we're going to have a much different emotional experience.
That's very powerful.
Because of it, right? Because it's just a subtle change in focus. It took 2 seconds to do that. It takes that fast for us to be able to shift out of stress, some of the emotions that might hinder us. Even though the thing may still be here, give yourself the second to shift your focus, feel something different, because what will happen is you'll be much more better equipped to deal with the problem than if you're going after stress with more stress. It's like this. And eventually you're doing a attrition battle. Who's going to give first? What's going to hurt first, right?
So there's the world we see, there's the world that is, and they're not always the same.
Not always the same. And if you can give yourself permission to come back to this more open, what ends up happening is there's a communication point. Now we can see it from a different perspective. It allows us to give ourselves that release and come back with a much more resourceful emotional state.
In dentistry, I mean, if you're having a problem, maybe you're trying to bypass the ledge or something, and you're just keep failing and you're not successful with it, maybe reschedule that patient to come back at a later date, and then you'll be able to, like, I know when I play just any game or word game or something, if I am stuck for a long time, I'll walk away, do something, come back, and I see the answer immediately.
Yeah.
So
Fresh perspectives.
Absolutely, every time. And I love that, because it's a lot of times we have a business model. It's about, turning over chairs as fast as possible. But in so doing, you're accumulating the very thing that's going to hinder your ability to perform at the highest level. You're building up more stress. You give yourself more pressure. By doing maybe one less, your quality goes up tenfold. And then because quality's increased tenfold, your actual results over the course of a quarter, a year, it's exponential, the growth in profitability, in terms of positivity, happiness, cohesion in the workplace. It's remarkable, the difference. And then last thing is language, right? So we did focus, physiology, and language. A lot of times stress is manufactured because we're telling ourselves a story either about ourselves or about what somebody else is thinking of us. So I'll give you an example. If I say, hey, Cliff, that that shirt looks really crappy on you.
Thank you. That's how I changed the conversation.
Yeah. But right then, when I say that, now you have all these choices in your mind about what you can perceive that. You can think, well, what a jerk. I had him over here on my show, and he's going to be over here, and he has the nerve to judge me on camera, and this jacket is one of my favorite jackets. All sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it could get you really worked up. You could feel tense. You could feel stressed. Or you could also say an alternative like, I've known that Jesse guy for a while. He seems to be pretty good natured and fun. And that's kind of cool. He feels so comfortable with me that he could use me as a teaching example with it. I feel pretty stoked right now that he feels comfortable using that, right? So
that's interesting.
Right?
It's like what you were saying, like having maybe fear or insecurity approaching a root canal instead of looking at it as if, I'm really excited about this.
Yes.
This is a new opportunity. I'm going where no one's been before.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and then he mentioned this inside on the set, but a common comment I have heard thousands and thousands and thousands of times is, if I would have known it was going to go this easy, I would have slept last night. So we make up stories,
Yep.
And we practice the stories, and they become who we are, and then we cling to our stories, because that's got to protect who we are.
I'm also hearing from you to choose your battles. Like maybe he doesn't need to come back at you really aggressive, attacking you for dissing his shirt.
Yeah,
So-
because then what happens with that is there's if the outcome is to try to demonstrate how we can release stress, but he comes back with an aggressively, and then let's say that I'm like, oh, whoa, this guy, he doesn't even get what I'm trying to do. He's out of La La Land. So then I have a story, so I come back aggressively, and you think, oh, this. And then you think, oh man, these two are completely out. So now you're refereeing, the whole message is lost.
But you know what my story is? He's very big.
Yes.
And I'm not thinking, I'm going to say thank you. The comment is well taken.
Or try to kick me in the shin.
But back to your hand, sir.
Yeah.
I have said this for years on stage. Your hand has two sides. Breakdown, breakthrough. And you're giving us ideas today to turn little upsets and how to manage those into breakthroughs. I really like that.
Yeah, and I think just one final thing that you were saying, Lisa, about approaching the problem. We come in, and whether it's a problem in our life, a challenge at work, and however we're seeing it is going to manifest itself in some way around it. We could do the most amazing job, but if we're going through it stressed, fearful, we're going to beat up on ourselves afterwards. There's something I should have done, or we're going to rob ourselves of the elation that can come from being really proud and knowing that you did amazing work and you helped this person. But if you change the story inside of your head when you go in and approach it, now it's like, oh, I can be excited to serve, I can be excited to help this person. Even though it seems like you're doing the same thing, it's actually dramatically different. Because instead of going through and trying to do this thing that I'm really worried about, I get to do this thing I really love.
Oh,
right?
That's huge.
And we may still have some emotions, right? We may still get like butterfly feeling. And where we once used to label that as stress, we might just start to label it as passion. Because when we fall in love and we meet somebody for the first time, what happens? Our palms start to get clammy. We get a rapidness in our heart. Our stomach might get tight. Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of the same thing we talk about when we're really stressed out about having to meet someone for the first time. We're going into a presentation with your palms get sweaty, your heart starts to flutter, you get this. And so in one situation, we label it as stress and it's something really bad, but in something else, we label it as magic, excitement.
So the words you choose to describe it
Yes.
in your head or to other people is going to make a big difference.
Yeah,
So-
and you might just find that thing that you thought was stress all along is really passion knocking on your door. You've just gotten so disconnected from it, calling it stress and all this stuff for so long.
I also heard you say a very important word inside, and do you know what that word is that I'm going to come back to now? It starts with a G.
What I said.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Yes.
Oh, he's filled with gratitude, isn't he?
It's
He's
I
grateful.
think that probably a lot just being grateful and choosing to focus on the things in our life that we're happy with instead of the things that are causing us problems all the time could have a lot to do with it.
I've got a lot out of this session because telling one on me, personal, I don't really have any stress in my life. And when I do, I made it all. I loaded my wheelbarrow. Now I have to struggle to try to push my wheelbarrow. And I'm now 72, so the word is learn to say no. Because when you're doing too many things, the focus is diminished, and now you can't see the seams on the ball, the rotation on the ball, the speed of the ball. To be one with the ball needs focus. So maybe say no a few times in your life and focus on those things you love. And the harder you work at, the better you get, and the more successful you are. It's not so bad.
Maybe don't buy another wheelbarrow. Just like lighten the load on that one.
Yeah.
I really like this. I learned quite a bit today. You know, we know these things. There's that old expression, the Yiddish expression, if you wouldn't listen to your mom, you wouldn't be here today. But you're telling us common sense stuff about life that a lot of us have just forgotten it.
We get forgotten. We get so busy being busy that we forget to get back to basics.
Because we're really important people. We have a lot of things to do.
In our own heads.
Yeah, exactly.
And our problems are even more important than that. But I love the gratitude. It's so important. Ground yourself in gratitude. I promise you, whatever is going on in your life, we don't have bad days. We have bad moments. Even in
very
the
good.
worst days of our life, there's probably something really great that happened before. You know, the fact that you woke up, you win the lottery because there's 1 million plus people that didn't get the same thing as you. But we don't think that way. We think, ha, ha, ha. And yeah, so grounding yourself in gratitude, if you can get in the habit of just waking up and thinking of 2 things you're grateful for, whether it's a roof over your head or warm blankets, it's really powerful. And, you know, just for the record, I like your jacket or your shirt. I like it. It looks good on you. I can see you're stressing out about that.
Well, I was saying I was going to have to take it off, but I was worrying a lot about taking it off because how it would look.
Well, thank you very much for coming and talking to us about this.
Thanks,
buddy.
buddy.
I can say I learned a lot. It's good to think about these things because sometimes we just get too busy, we don't even think about them.
Yeah.
So that's it for the main body of our show.
Before you do that, do they know how to get a hold of him?
I'm sure we'll have a lot of information on our website,
Okay.
including a link to Jesse's website too. So you'll be able to find Jesse after this show.
Well, remember, if you help Phyllis, you can probably help them.
So we're going to close the show today. My dad is going to give you a surprise technique tip. So thanks for watching.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed the last segment on stress management, because now we're going to go clinic and I have a technique tip, and I think it's going to reduce your stress quite a bit in certain kinds of cases. So if we look at this maxillary second bicuspid, you can see it has a dilacerated root, very, very serious curvature. And I started thinking way back then, this is how I'd break down a hard case. I would always ask myself, do I have the training? Do I have the technology and know how to use it and have proficiency? And then do I have the desire? Do I have the determination? And can I be my word? So the tip I want to talk about is how to work some of these deep curvatures and not have to worry and have a lot of stress about, will I break the instrument? Will I ledge? Will I block? So if we look through this case a little bit, you can see we had a plan, careful access, done the pre-enlargement early so I can pre-curve the file, guide the pre-curve file through the pre-enlarged canal and make the curvature, fit the cone and pack it. But I had a plan. Now a lot of you are thinking in this age of rotary instruments, the last 20 some years, that the impression becomes from listening to teachers that everything can be done mechanically. Well, you know what? You need to have a few more ideas in your toolbox, because sometimes it's not an anatomical challenge. Sometimes a case has been referred and the dentist can't get to length. And this dentist thought there was a ledge or a block, but he didn't know if he did it, but he was thinking refer. So refer is a great idea. That lowered his stress. By referring it to me, I was able to find out that actually deep, the canal bifurcated, went two different pathways, had a common portal of exit, but look at all the anatomy. Look at all the anatomy on the post-op film. So there was a plan, but it started off with not being intimidated, having training, having some ideas, having the technology that could help me. And one more case, and then the tip. I'm building to the tip. 90% of my practice for 40 years was like retreatment. So that means that out of every 1,000 patients that came to see Cliff Ruddle, 900 had already had endodontics. In fact, many of the cases had had surgery. So I got used to that world way back in the 80s and the 90s. And so I got lots of cases like this. And this is a ledge canal. If you look at the distance from the outer wall, the PDL space, to the obturation material, and then if you look from the obturation material over to the other PDL, the obturation material is not centered in the root. And obviously I had more than one view of this too, so I already had a plan and an idea, and that's reducing stress, okay? When you go into a case and you hope you can do it, come on, hope's good in church, but it doesn't work in the operatory. You gotta be trained up, technology, have a plan, have the right team, and boom, work really hard. Some of these cases take time. You can notice the shape of that lesion of endodontic origin. You can notice the lesion is centered on the portal of exit. You can notice that we made a very tough curve up here. Now, how did I do these cases? What is the tip? Well, most of you, because you are efficient, you want to do a good job, you've migrated to NITI years and years ago. Some of you more recently. Some of you grew up on NITI, okay? Then, of course, NITI got better because it got heat treated. So our files became more flexible and more resistant to cyclic fatigue fractures. And so all of a sudden the world is, every case can be done with a rotary file. Just like all the people I train with show me. But that's not real world endodontics. If you want to really be in there and have a plan and reduce your stress, the tip could be, did you know that you can take handles, you can buy these handles, and you can have them oriented with the head of the instrument, and you can put them on. And you can convert a mechanical file mechanical handle to a manual file by snapping on these handles. Suddenly, you're going, well, that's great, Cliff. I got a handle on that, but it's still NiTi, and NiTi has shape memory. Of course, with heat treatment, we know that shape memory has been massively reduced because we can take our fingers on some of these newly heat-treated instruments, like ProTaper Gold, and we can curve them with our fingers, and they'll relax a little bit, but they tend to hold the curve. But if we really want to know another little tip, so we can go, first tip, convert mechanical to manual. Second tip, now use the orthodontic bird beak plier. This is as ubiquitous in an orthodontic office as a tin file is a general dentist office. So we can use this. Notice it has a tapered platform, and then it has a flat platform. You can place the file anywhere you want along the platform. Close the plier and pull the handle through a radius. Let's take a look. Grab it. Wherever you grab it will determine the radius of the curvature. Pull it through a curvature. And this is just regular NiTi. This has no heat treatment. And so sometimes in ledge management, a little stiffer file is useful because once you get it by the impediment, it's stiff enough to hold that shape, and it carves out and can reduce many ledges to where it's just a smooth shaped canal. All right, so the tip of the day is some of these tough cases anatomically, some cases iatrogenically, ledges, some cases pathologically, resorptive defects need to have special care, and we need to have an idea that can seal the deal and can negotiate in a much safer and lower our stress and live to learn something and then to take it to the next case. So I've enjoyed this little segment. I hope you have too, and I hope this tip helps you shape those curvatures and those recurvatures. And until next time, use this tip and manage your stress.